Let's move on, though, to a gun training demo. In my class, I go over cartridges and what they mean, or what they're composed of. Larry, this goes out to you. If you're listening, Larry, a friend of mine, Larry, explained to me why it's so important to be detailed in your description of things. I would tell people, and if you can see this in the video, I'm holding a cartridge, but I would call it a bullet. Most people would just say, hey, that's a bullet. Well, in reality, it's not a bullet. It's a cartridge or a round. A cartridge and a round consist of different components. One of the components is the bullet, and that is the projectile, the part that goes out the muzzle of the barrel. The cartridge is seated inside the case, the shell casing. It could be brass, it could be plastic, it could be steel. The shell casing holds a primer at the bottom, and inside the casing is gunpowder. So when you put this whole thing together, you end up with a cartridge or a round. When you put the cartridge in the chamber of a gun, and you go and cock the hammer and pull the trigger, and the firing pin strikes the primer will spark. It sparks, it lights the gunpowder. The gunpowder burns very quickly and builds up pressure. The pressure has got to go somewhere. The weakest place it's going to go is at the backside of that bullet and push it down the barrel of the gun until it comes out the muzzle and then downrange to whatever it is that you're aiming at. So that's how it works. So you have components of a cartridge: the bullet, the shell casing, the primer, and gunpowder. Once again, you hit the primer, it sparks, it ignites the powder burns, the pressure builds up and pushes the projectile down the barrel out the muzzle of the gun. The other part that's important is to understand different categories of the round. Let me clarify. If I put a live cartridge into the chamber of the gun, I cock the hammer, I pull the trigger, I do that 100 million times, and the cartridge never goes off. There's a term for that. There's probably a few different terms, but the term most commonly used is dud. It's a dud. It's broken. It doesn't work. You put the cartridge in the gun, in the chamber of the gun, pull the trigger, firing pin hits the primer again and again and again and again, and nothing happens. It's a dud. Okay. Next category. If I put this cartridge in the chamber of my gun and pull the trigger, and the firing pin hits the primer, but nothing happens, and then 15 seconds later it goes off, what do we call that? There's a few terms for that one. You could call that one a delay fire, a hang fire, a slow burn. But the most important thing to know is when you pull that trigger and if it doesn't go off, keep the muzzle of the weapon pointed downrange or in a safe direction just in case that thing goes off 15 seconds later. So you've got the dud, the one that doesn't work. You've got the delay, the hang, or slow burn cartridge. Now let's talk about another one. This is important to set up. I got about another minute here to tell you about it. If you put this cartridge in the chamber of a gun and it instantaneously goes off because the gun is critically white hot, super hot from use, we call that a cook-off. The thing is, you're probably not going to see that under normal use. You usually see that in combat. Somebody shooting a machine gun will say long bursts of fire. The barrel gets white hot. You can see the actual darker colored bullets going down the barrel. The gun is so hot, it just set the round off, and that's called a cook-off. But at least you have an understanding now. You've got the dud, it doesn't work. You got the slow burn, delay fire, hang fire, or you got the cook-off. So when it comes to analysis of trying to figure out things, you can use your detective work and say, hey, I know the different terms, I know what they mean. Well, the gun fired 15 seconds later, so it can't be a cook-off. I'm sorry, it can't be a dud. I'm shooting a Glock pistol, half of which is plastic. If I had a super critically white-hot gun, the plastic would melt, so obviously it can't be that. So it's probably a hang fire. So you can do a process of elimination. But that's it, the components of a cartridge and the different categories of the cartridge.